And we are back for episode 22 of Journey to a Million, our second episode of Journey to a Million this week. So look at that. We talked about the draft on Wednesday, recap that with Dustin Burgundy. That went great. And now here we are. We are talking Packers here on this Friday morning for the first half. Then we'll be talking about the New Orleans Saints in the second half. And we have the full Journey to a Million squad here. Zack, Jared Vleski, and myself, Drew Skyberg. And we are joined alongside Bernie Vandenhoevel. He's going to be our Packers connoisseur, expert, whatever you want to call him. Bernie, how you doing today?
I'm doing great today. How are you all other guys?
Doing good. Doing great.
Splendid.
We are excited to talk Packers here. And look, this is going to be fun now because, look, we've done the offseason previews. We've been doing them for a while now. And look, now we get to talk about the draft with it. So we don't have to be like, oh, well, what if they take this guy? What if they take this guy? We can say they took this guy. So that is going to be a lot of fun. And with that, though, first we got to start talking about this past season for the Packers. And Bernie, I'm going to start with you. How would you grade the Green Bay Packers 2021 season?
My grade would probably be around an A-. I think individually, they all played very well. I think Rodgers had a great season. I think Adams had a great season. Everyone played super well. I mean, you take away a couple of bad games like the Saints and unfortunately the 49ers game in the postseason. Every other game was pretty impressive. They lost one against the Chiefs, but Rodgers didn't play. So I think overall it's an A-, but they just had one really bad game when they didn't need to have a bad game.
I'll go next here. Look, Packers, you're at the point you got to win, right? I mean, you can't be like, oh, we won the division, hosted a playoff game, and we lost. I think this has to stop, and I might go a little unpopular here, but I'll give it a C. Look, I mean, I'll acknowledge the greatness that was in the regular season. Look, Rodgers winning another MVP, but at the end of the day, job was not finished, and with that, I can go A all I want for the regular season, but at the end of the day, postseason still matters. So I will go C.
Yeah, I'm kind of agreeing with Drew here. I'm not going to go as low as a C, but I'll give it a B just because obviously they had the expectations. I think everyone pretty much knew before the season they're going to win the division. Wasn't a whole lot of competition, and they did get the 1 seed, host that playoff game. But, I mean, you still got to go farther. I mean, that team was supposed to go to the Super Bowl, so I'm going to have to give it a B.
Yeah, I'd go around where you are, Zach. I mean, the games that they lost in the regular season, obviously the Chiefs, Jordon Love played, and then the Lions, like you guys said. Obviously Jordon Love played for a half of it. Rodgers, they'd benched all their starters after third quarter. It was obviously that Saints game was a fluke, but yeah, in the playoffs, like you said, Drew, you got to win. And after the expectations they had going into the year and how last year ended, the year before, I think that they just needed to do something in the postseason, and they just obviously couldn't. So I'd say probably B-. I'd give them.
Yeah, looking at it, right? I mean, expectations were there, and that's why we had to go lower, talking about the Packers season in general. But look, they had arguably one of the craziest or most interesting off seasons out of the whole NFL this year, just solely based on, look, you had Aaron Rodgers. You didn't know what was going on with him. Devontae Adams was a big story too, right? And then those other guys in Rasul Douglas, Devondre Campbell, the Smith bros, Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith, no relation there, of course. But like looking at that, there's a lot of question marks. And overall, we look what happened, right? You trade Devontae Adams, you sign, then you re-sign, Tunyon, Douglas, Campbell, Zadarius Smith's released, and you extend Preston Smith. I guess looking through the moves, was there a move that you guys were particularly fond of, or was there something you guys weren't a fan of, right? Starting with Jared here.
Obviously, I mean, the Adams trade is huge. Like you can't just or not. I mean, you couldn't have paid him enough money for him to stay. Obviously, he wanted to go to the Raiders and play with Derek Carr, his college roommate. There was nothing you could have done to get him. But obviously, him leaving is huge. Now you're in a scramble. Obviously, we saw in the draft they had to go with a receiver, second round. Just trying to scramble to get anyone for Rodgers. He's only got a few more years left in Green Bay. You're in a win now situation. So, I mean, getting rid of letting Adams go. They did get Watkins in, but obviously he's not nearly as caliber as Adams. So, I mean, after he leaves, I'd say that was obviously the biggest offseason moment for the Packers trying to get a replacement for him or anything close.
Zach?
I like the Adams trade. I mean, they got a first and second, which is good value. And obviously, was it like a week or two later, you saw the Chiefs trade Hill. So, I mean, that's two good franchises that have a good history. They do similar things, not paying their number one wide receiver, trading him for draft picks. So anytime that two franchises of that caliber do the same move, I think there's got to be something there that makes sense. And obviously, Adams didn't want to play for the Packers, even though they offered him similar to what the Raiders got. And I don't think the Packers could have afforded to have Rodgers, Bakhtiari, and then obviously Jair they're going to have to pay soon, and then Adams all at the same time. So I do like the trade. Obviously, we saw what they did with those draft picks, but I also like the Campbell re-signing. Obviously, 5 years, $50 million. I don't know if he's going to be here all 5 years because he's getting up in age, but I think that's a good price point for him.
I'd have to agree with Zach on the Adams trade because it's really hard to get a player to play for you if they don't want to be there. So I think that's huge. You got not as much as I would have liked to have seen for him, but you did get something out of it. And we were able to use that first-round pick to help patch some holes in our defense caused by the Zadarius Smith release, which, in my opinion, also it's not that big of a deal. He barely played last year. He's also going to, drive up a bargain price-wise, so we wouldn't be able to afford him. But over all time, the Packers are 10-3 without Davante Adams. And a lot of times when I saw him and Rodgers play, they were the problems in some losses because he would force feed him the ball so much. Like if you look at the 49ers loss in the playoffs, he was trying to shove it down Davante Adams' throat. And a lot of times that's just not how it has to be. So I think it's going to make the offense. Exactly. So I think I kind of see it almost like Chris Middleton sometimes in the Bucks, how he'll take it up the court when he shouldn't have to, and he just holds on to it and shoots like a fadeaway. Not the best thing. So I think it's a good thing to get rid of him. But again, he's still a great receiver, so it's tough to replace that. But again, with Zach's mention of the Campbell signing, I think that's a great signing. It reminds me of Bobby Portis because you got him for not too much. So, I mean, great signing for that as well. And really everything else they did this offseason was pretty good. I like the Tunyon signing if he's healthy. And Watkins was just a pickup for a receiver. Didn't cost too much. So if he's healthy, that's good. But Rasul Douglas was an interesting signing because we didn't see a lot of him this year. There's not much film. Like he came up from the practice squad. He played well for a season, but I don't know if that constitutes being a great corner yet. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I think especially with Douglas, his turnovers, obviously he had a lot of timely turnovers, big turnovers. I think that definitely kind of gave him more publicity and kind of drove up his stock. But, I mean, they got him for, I think it was like $6 or $7 million a year. So obviously not that big of a price tag. So I think that signing was good, and I'm sure they can get out of it if he doesn't play well.
Yeah, for me, the signing that I really enjoyed that was kind of, not looked at by many. It was Sammy Watkins. Getting a guy like Sammy Watkins, that veteran wide receiver, Cobb as well. We I think with getting Christian Watson, which we'll talk about with the draft, I think this is gonna be some good stuff here. I think you have experienced wide receivers. Lazard, is certainly due. Look, we saw him kind of come out at the end of the year. He had a nice game. I know his last game against Detroit, we were there, right? But Packers, this might be a blessing in disguise, right? With Davante Adams' departure, it might be, it might make Aaron Rodgers, it might having more balance. I think maybe a more balanced attack, which, might be the thing that that puts the Packers over the hump. And maybe even, some of the other draft picks, like we'll talk about with the defense, right? How, Joe Barry we talked about this Monday, episode 60 of the Sports Crew with Alex Trowbridge and myself, how, Joe Barry was a winner in this draft because, look, he has a lot of more weapons to work with than guys like Quay Walker, Devontae Wyatt, and others we'll talk about. But, you guys want to talk anything more with the moves that were made, in free agency? Do you want to talk more about the draft now?
Yeah, let's go to the draft.
Yeah, so looking at it, we did give some draft grades on Wednesday's episode, but we'll kind of go through it briefly here. We'll talk about the selections, talk about our thoughts, sleepers, all that good stuff. So it goes, you get 2 first-round picks. Yeah, Quay Walker, Devontae Wyatt, shocked. A lot of fans were shocked by that as we talked Wednesday, but I guess we'll highlight, we went through all this just talking. What was your favorite pick of the draft, Bernie? Was there someone who you were like, this guy's the steal of the draft for the Packers?
In my opinion, it may not be the hottest take, but I think the 2 defenders that we picked in the first round were a great pickup. I think so. All like the first round receiver talent was gone. I don't think it would have been worth drafting like Watson in that first round, but they filled the gaps on the defense with those first 2 picks, and I think that was important because defense is going to win you championships, and the defense played great last year, and if they can fill the couple holes that we had, that's fine by me because they did end up getting some receivers, Christian Watson, a couple other guys, and what's great about that is that you have one guy who you can work on to make him like your number 1, number 2, but the other guys you can develop. You can like have them be your number 3, 4, 5 receiver in the depth chart, so they have time to develop. They don't have to be that number 1 guy, which I think is super important. You also have one of the best quarterbacks of all time throwing to you, a guy who has a lot of experience, and that's going to help you progress more. I think it's also important then that they got Sammy Watkins, because having a vet there to help a younger guy understand the game, know what to do, is super huge. And for me, I kind of wanted Julio to get picked up, or a different vet for like a smaller minimum, just to help coach someone. You don't have to be the number 1 guy, the number 2 guy. You just have to be there, coach the young guys so they can be great. So I think overall, it was a really good draft.
Yeah, I agree, Bernie. I mean, so obviously with the first, we all had mock drafts of who we thought the Packers were going to take. Most of us had receivers, and I also had them taking a linebacker to fill in Zadarius Smith's spot. And when they took Quay Walker, I was like, okay, maybe that's a little high, but I mean, it filled the gap that they needed. And then they took Wyatt, and I was like, why would they do that? But then I looked, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe there's no good receivers like that would go in that area. But then they did have to trade up to get Watson, which I was like, okay, so that makes sense. At least they got their guy. But I was kind of like confused as if they would have gotten Watson at 28, you think they wouldn't have had to draft or to trade up to get Watson? Obviously it all worked out. They got who they wanted. But I don't know. I was just kind of confused about the whole 28 thing. If they took Watson there, maybe they wouldn't have had to trade up to get him.
Yeah, I think they wanted Devontae Wyatt, and he definitely wouldn't have been there at 53, I think was their next pick. But I like the Devontae Wyatt signing, or the Devontae Wyatt pick, because pairing him with Kenny Clark and Jaron Reed, who they signed that we mentioned before, that really solidifies the interior of the defensive line. So then the linebackers are going to be able to roam more freely. And obviously Quay Walker and Devondre Campbell are going to be the probably middle linebackers. So that really shores up the run defense, which, while it improved last year, still wasn't great. And then the only thing with Watson, the Christian Watson pick, is they gave up 2 second rounders to move up. So I guess they did move from like the back of round 2 to the front, but I still thought that was a little pricey.
Look, they knew they needed a receiver. Look,
Yeah.
Rodgers, and I believe there was reports. I don't know if they were deemed true or not, that he was not pleased with the first. I mean, was there something around those lines, or
He said he
yeah.
was talking to the office, and he I mean, the only report I saw was about Adams saying that he didn't know.
Yeah,
that
he
Adams wasn't going to come back.
Yeah, that was, of course, news. Pat McAfee,
Yeah.
right, breaking that Jared's
Yeah.
Colts. But, yeah, I guess we got to talk too about, looking fantasy wise too, right? Robert Tunyon's a question because Darren Waller, right? The rumors of, maybe look, we give them Devontae Adams, maybe we get Darren Waller. So what do you guys think? Would you guys be interested in having Waller come to Green Bay? I'm all for it. It just depends on the price tag, of course.
Me?
I want.
Oh, go ahead,
Go ahead,
Zach.
Bernie. Okay. Well, I want to guess I wasn't the biggest fan if that would have happened. I think everything kind of came out now saying that he's not going to, but his contract is expiring. I think it's after this year. So they would have had to pay him, and he's not going to be cheap either. So it's kind of replacing the Adams contract. You probably save like $10 million or something like that, but you're still going to have to pay Waller. And he's also getting older. I think he's 29. So I wasn't a big fan of that. I didn't really understand that.
To me, I also wasn't the biggest fan, again, because of the contract situation. It's really tricky to trade for someone who has an expiring contract because it's a rental player and you're not guaranteed to have him sign back. I think Tunyon was really, really good in his season when he was healthy. Again, like he tore his ACL last year. So if he comes back healthy, I'm perfectly fine with having him because I think him and Mercedes Lewis are a phenomenal 1-2 punch because you have a big guy who can get you the 3 yards and you have a guy who can run the seam. So for that reason, I think Tunyon's going to have a relatively cheaper contract because of the injury, because he's not the biggest name, and because he didn't make that Pro Bowl the other year when he should have. But I think we're fine right now with tight ends.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't think you need anyone. I mean, you have to remember Tunyon was literally led the league in tight end touchdowns 2 years ago when he was healthy. So like, obviously you don't need any upgrade. Tunyon, if he comes back healthy, that is, he should be fine for you guys. And like, obviously with Mercedes Lewis, he's always a good option just to have that 1-2 punch, like you said, Bernie. I don't really think that Darren Waller will give you guys much more than you already have. So if Tunyon comes back healthy, I think that they'll be fine the way they are, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's always about looking, again, if Tunyon, right? If he comes back well, but I know Deebo Samuel is someone like I'm not for that right price tag. Another guy, plus with paying him cap room, totally not an ideal situation. But again, yeah, just concerns. If Tunyon comes back fine, right? There's no need to. But again, if there is a concern with him coming in to camp or going through training, I think Waller would be a potential guy. But again, it's about how much they want from him, and because draft picks. They're everything, in the NFL. So other guys for fantasy, right? We got to look through. I always find Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon, that always an interesting combo, right? Because like Dillon's going to give you the touchdowns and Jones is going to, Jones might give you some touchdowns as well, but Jones is going to give you those in PPR. He's obviously going to have that more value due to his receptions. But, are you guys looking at, of course, Packer running backs? They're always, they've always been good, last, if you look, with Eddie Lacy going back and even farther. But what do you guys think, from the running back department for Green Bay this year? Jared, what do you think?
I always tend to stay away from them just because they do split, and I'm not a big fan of split backs. But if they fall to me in the draft, I'll obviously take them if I have a pick and they're like the best option. Like I'll take Jones, but it's always really concerning having split backs. Like we see that with Tony Pollard taking over Ezekiel Elliott's carries. I just don't like having a running back that's not like secured in their starting spot, and they don't know. You never know if they're going to get those touchdowns. So like I always try to stay away from them. But like I said, if they do fall to me, I wouldn't hesitate to take them.
I think they're going to both have decent roles. Obviously, last year, Jones was probably around that low end running back 1, high end running back 2, and then Dillon was between like that 2 or 3 range. I think they're going to have probably similar roles where Jones is going to be a lot more receptions, and then Dillon will probably get the red zone or goal line carries. But I think they're going to have expanded role, maybe even be like a Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt type level for fantasy production wise, just because that lack of receiver that they still have. I think Jones will probably be more involved in the pass game, and then that'll open up more carries for Dillon.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. Bernie, you
think, again, if the offense is able to spread out like they were able to without Devontae Adams, it could open up more carries. Like Jared said, it's really tough to draft split backs. It's super tough. But the thing with those two guys is that they have some monster games sometimes, but you never know when it's going to happen. Like there's one game where Dillon will have 3 touchdowns, then Aaron Jones has like 150 yards because he'll just run on the field, and then AJ Dillon runs it in. So it's really tough to draft that, but they get big games every now and then, which I think is pretty important. So, I mean, like he said, if they followed me, I draft them. I don't know if they'd be as high as other backs, but they are pretty dynamic. So, yeah.
Maybe some best ball upside if anyone plays best ball.
Yeah, for sure. Looking early. Dynasty wise, I guess the main receiver we're going to talk about here, Christian Watson. Where do we think he's going to end up? Look, all four of us are in the same dynasty league. Rookie draft coming up. I guess. What do you guys think the outlook is? I think certainly he'll be one of the. He'll probably be one of the first picks here, just solely based on with the team he ended up with, based on with Aaron Rodgers. And there's a lot of media, right? High expectations certainly with Christian Watson right now. What do you guys think too, Zach?
Well, I've been doing just some kind of like mock drafts for like this upcoming rookie draft, and obviously it's just auto picking for the other people. And I think he's kind of going. It's like towards the end of the first round, maybe beginning of second round, he might fall to. But I'm not sure if he'll be kind of like this year. If he's going to be a wide receiver 1, he might be like that wide receiver 2 range or wide receiver 3 with a lot of upside, because he will have that volume. And obviously Rodgers is a great quarterback to have, but I think he needs a little bit of time to develop yet.
Bernie?
I think, in my opinion, he'll finish as at least a top 20 receiver. And I think Sammy Watkins is going to finish as a top 25. I know that's extremely bold, but I think having them split like that could be really good. So I think if you need a receiver, that could be really good, because if you look at the other rookie receivers who've been drafted, a lot of them don't have a quarterback. Christian Watson has one of the best quarterbacks of all time throwing to him, and he's already a pretty big guy, pretty fast guy. So I have pretty high upside for him if he's put into a wide receiver 2 role, not wide receiver 1.
Yeah.
Heard it here. Wow.
Yeah, I don't think I'd go that high on Watson. I've seen, or not Watson, Watkins. I've seen Packer fans overhype the signing a little bit. He's a good solid 3, maybe 4. Looking dynasty wise, I don't think you go with him, obviously, because he's a little older. But with Christian Watson, like we saw with Jamar Chase last year on his rookie year, like obviously they're going to get a lot of value. So I'd say Christian Watson, probably, a top 5 pick in a dynasty draft. I could see he was like one of the top whatever receivers to go off the board. So, I could see him being a really huge value for a fantasy holder.
Yeah, especially in our league being majority Packer fans, I think there's going to be some bias that really pushes him up. That's basically that's why, Zach, I think top 3, I know you said end of first round, but look at, people.
Yeah, that's just like mock drafts with auto draft, because actually nobody else was in the draft.
For sure. We'll talk about
fantasy.
Go ahead.
So speaking of fantasy, where do you think Tunyon will rank in tight ends this year?
Depending on his health. It's basically just depending on his health.
You could probably get him as like a backup tight end, honestly.
He'll be on a discount. Yeah.
He'd probably go around
with
like
Waller rumors too. I know like the unlikelihood, right? But like that certainly will help you get him on a discount, I think, looking at it this year. But quickly here before we do our record prediction challenge, let's talk about Jordon Love, the future. Look, it's already been, it's not just last year anymore. It's been a couple of years now since Jordon Love was drafted. And so far, what we've seen, look, we were at the game in Detroit. We didn't see much out of him. I know interceptions. He did kind of get unlucky there. Look, he played in that game in Kansas City. And we've seen him, of course, in other games, during the end of the game, right? In garbage time. But overall, future of Jordon Love is a story. And how do you think that story is going to end?
Well, I don't really know yet. It depends, because do the Packers have a first round pick next year in the draft?
Yes.
Is it high? Could they? They could always trade up.
Jared, you don't know until the season's
done. Oh yeah, true. But okay, so I thought that they should have traded Jordon Love just because his value is as high as it probably is ever going to be, and that quarterback draft class next year is a lot higher. So maybe they could get a quarterback next year. I don't see him as the future of the Packers. I don't know. We've seen him play. Obviously, it's 2 games. It's obviously a small sample size, but in those 2 games, he didn't look anything impressive. I don't see him as the future, so maybe they could trade him and get a new quarterback, but I'll see how that unfolds in the future.
thing with Rodgers' contract though is he's got pretty much 3 years left that he'll like probably be in Green Bay for sure. Obviously, he can like change his mind or whatever. But then, see, the thing with Jordan Love though is you're gonna have to give him another contract before that happens. So I don't see that happening. I don't think Jordan Love is gonna be a top 10 quarterback. He might be like that 15 to 20 range, but I don't think he's gonna be anyone special that teams are going to give up like multiple picks for, even if he does start. Just because I don't think he has that. I don't know if I should say talent, but like I don't know if he has that upside.
Look, go ahead, Bernie.
I have to agree with both the guys because right now, if Rodgers keeps playing for 3 more years, he's not going to want to play for us. He's not going to want to re-sign a contract to sit behind a guy for 5 years. If you're a first-round quarterback, you're not going to want to do that. So what I think they're doing, they're going to wait until preseason. They're going to play him every single preseason game and then trade him so teams can get to see what they're going to get. I think that's a good idea, but like right now, you gotta trade him because if he doesn't re-sign, that's a waste of a first-round pick. So you have to get some kind of compensation for his value.
What a
Who do
joke.
you think is gone first, Jordan Love or Baker Mayfield?
Baker Mayfield, because he has proven a little bit more, probably.
But it's just such a joke because you understand what they're gonna do, right? Have a guy sit for a few years under like one of the greatest quarterbacks, right? But look, now Rodgers resigns, has 3 more years. It would have been next year you draft him. He sits a couple of years, boom, he's ready. Look at the next year's quarterback class. But they rushed it too early, right? And there's always some team like you either get a guy or trade a guy too early. I mean, and sometimes that risk pays off, but here it just didn't. I mean, it just exploded in everyone's face. And the whole Packers front office, it backfired big time, and they're going to pay the price when you trade Jordan Love, and the value you get from him is going to be atrocious, probably. So that's just how it is. Right, but go ahead.
What's tough about that too is that you're not going to draft a first-round quarterback in the next couple of years because the fan base would probably rip you apart. So you either have to draft a second-round quarterback, hope he's going to be good in like 2 years, or when you dish out Jordan Love, sign like a Nick Foles who just got released for a veteran minimum. Like he's not going to be your future quarterback, but at least if Rodgers is gone, that's something as a placeholder when you draft a quarterback.
Yeah, they can't draft someone again until Rodgers is like, this is my last season, or until he actually retires after a season.
Exactly. So that's the story there. We're going to do some Packer prediction challenge here before we go to talk some Saints. So are you guys ready, Bernie, how this works? I'm going to read the 17 opponents for the 2022 to 2023 season for the Green Bay Packers. And you're going to tell me the first record that comes to your mind. We're going to write it down and let you know how you do at the end of next season.
That sounds lovely.
Let's do it. So here it is. At Washington to face the Commanders, at Chicago, at Detroit, hosting Chicago, hosting Detroit, hosting Minnesota, hosting Dallas, hosting the Giants, hosting the New England Patriots, hosting the Jets, going to Miami, going to Minnesota, going to Philly, going to Buffalo, hosting Tennessee, hosting the Los Angeles Rams, and then going to Tampa to face the Buccaneers. What do you think?
I have them 5-1 in conference. I think they drop a game to the Vikings like they do every single year, and they're going to go 12-5 overall.
I had that same mindset as Bernie. They're going to lose to the Vikings once just because they always do. But I'm going to say 13-4. I think their schedule is favorable up until the last few games, and they play some tough opponents. I think they drop into the Rams, maybe even the Buccaneers. So I'd say 13-4.
Zach?
I'm going to go 13-4 too. I think they're going to beat the Rams, though, because the last few years they've handled the Rams pretty well.
I have 13-4 as well, and they are beating the Jets, Zach. Sorry, this is one of the Jets' 8 losses. So.
This is one of the Jets' losses, yeah.
Hey, Jets are on the upside, though. Great draft for them.
Yeah. As we discussed, Bernie, before we talk some Saints here, did you hear Zach's Jets prediction? Zach did have the Jets going 9-8 for next season.
That is extremely bold. That's very bold.
This is before the draft, too. It's probably like a month and a half ago now.
Hottest of takes.
There we go. Yeah, we like flaming hot takes here on Journey to Millie. And then, with that, anyone have anything else here about the Packers? All right. So with that, we're going to take a quick break here. And when we come back, we will be talking about the New Orleans Saints. I was recently introduced to AG1, and wow, if you're someone like me who hates taking pills and vitamins, wants more energy, and wants a more optimized immune system, let me tell you why this is the perfect supplement for you. So what is this stuff, you may ask? With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. It's all those things. And look, this is the perfect thing to start your morning routine, start your day off right with just one scoop of AG1 with some water. And let's talk about AG1. What makes it so great, you may ask? It contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, while still tasting good. Tons of people take some kind of multivitamin, right? And it's important to choose one with high-quality ingredients that your body will actually absorb. And let's talk about the price, right? You might be asking about that. You're investing in an all-in-one nutritional insurance, and with that, that's going to save you money, right? It costs you less than $3 a day while you're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than that cold brew habit, which I do have. I do love my coffee, but talk about what the founder did here. He created Athletic Greens after experiencing how difficult it was to create an optimal nutritional routine on your own, and I can attest to that. It is extremely difficult on a day-by-day basis. Athletic Greens, they also have over 7,000 5-star reviews, so you are getting the best when it comes to Athletic Greens. And also, they're a climate neutral certified company, so they care about the environment. And for every purchase, they donate to organizations helping to kids in need, including No Kid Hungry here in the U.S. And right now, it is just time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. Look, to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you 1 year supply free of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/emerging. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/emerging. athleticgreens.com/emerging. EMERGING. And that is to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Thank you again to Athletic Greens for sponsoring this episode. Make sure to use, of course, our code again, emerging. Let's talk about the New Orleans Saints here. So yeah, this is the second half now of episode 22. And yeah, we're going to go through it again. We have everyone here from the first half of the episode. So let's talk about it. Of course, we're going to start, how we always do, New Orleans Saints. We're going to talk about the 2021 season. So what did you guys think about how it fared? How would you grade it? We're going to start with you here, Jared. So
it started promising, obviously, with that first game against the Packers, dominated, but it fared off pretty well. Ended middle of the road. I mean, they were close to a playoff spot, but didn't get it, obviously, in the end. So I would say the year after Drew Brees is gone, I'd give him a C, solid C.
I'll give them a B-. I think they're kind of in that quarterback limbo, but then they also had Jameis, who they're going to rely on as their starter, and then he got hurt, which kind of, I think if Winston would have stayed healthy, they would have made the playoffs for sure, and then maybe won a game or two. So I'll give it a B-.
Yeah,
I agree with Jared. I'd probably give it like a C to C plus again because Winston got hurt. They didn't have a definitive quarterback after Breeze with Taysom Hill and stuff, so it wasn't a bad season, but it could have been better.
Yeah, look, for me, the city of New Orleans, look, passionate football fans, right? I mean, they have the Pelicans, and then this is, New Orleans Saints. That is their team down there, and NFL is just big for them. And look, every year it seems expectations for the playoffs are there, right? And if you don't make the playoffs, even right, there's going to be some problems. And look, they didn't make the playoffs here, and that's going to put me. I'm going to go C- here. I just think when expectations are there, and I know Drew Brees was gone, but I still think barring, of course, we had some injury, of course, but it started off hot, with that game against the Packers. But yeah, I'm gonna go C minus here. And talking now off season, right? More people retired, more things happened. Sean Payton, of course, the big news, right? Hit when he announced his retirement. I don't know if anyone was really expecting that. I thought that was very shocking. I knew you would think, when Breeze went out, they might go out at the same year together, but maybe not at a year like this, staggered like this. But yeah, that was shocking. Then, of course, Dennis Allen was his replacement, which we talked about on prior episodes of Journey to a Million. But yeah, you re-sign Jameis Winston, you get Andy Dalton. Malcolm Jenkins also retires, so that was another big story as well. I guess we saw the news today, right? Tyrann Mathieu is a Saint, 3-year deal. That was a very nice signing there. But looking through it, guys, was there a favorite move you guys had? A sleeper move, maybe? Just to throw in sleeper in there. But Zach, what do you think?
I like 2 of their moves. Well, obviously, I like the Tyrann Mathieu move as well. But re-signed Jameis Winston. I think he has he has a good floor that can get that team to the playoffs, obviously with the improved roster. And now, so I like the Dennis Allen as the new head coach. I know we talked about that already, but obviously keeping someone that the players are familiar with and that was obviously the head coach of that defense, the defensive coordinator last year. So,
Ernie?
To me, I like the Dalton signing because it gives competition in the quarterback room. Winston's a good quarterback. He's proved it some seasons, but he's extremely inconsistent with what he gives you. And coming off a knee injury, I think he's going to have to rely more on his arm instead of, athleticism. And if that can't get it done, Dalton can step in. He's a proven starting quarterback who can go in there and do stuff. And I also like that because it doesn't let you use Taysom Hill as a quarterback. I love Taysom Hill as a tight end, as a Swiss Army knife, but he is not a quarterback. He's a college quarterback that did not transition well into the NFL.
He's a good fantasy cheat code, though.
When he's daily fantasy assassin.
For me, I obviously like Tyrann Mathieu. My whole thing with Sean Payton is I think that he was waiting to see a year after Breeze, see how it would play out. And obviously they didn't get to the playoffs, and he was kind of underwhelmed. And he's like, you know what, it's might be a good time for me to leave. So I think that might be the reason why, but I'm not sure. I also like the Winston re-signing, but this might mean that it's the end of Ian Book's NFL career, which could be sad. But with Dalton and Winston, obviously Winston's going to start. Dalton, good backup, but I don't know. They obviously got Mathieu, Jenkins retired, so they filled in him, and then they also got Marcus May to as another safety. So I like their offseason.
Yeah, probably
we get to see more about Winston's workouts.
Yeah, we got to talk then about right. Jared mentioned Ian Book. Certainly his career with the Saints probably comes to an end here. Probably go get signed somewhere else, make a practice squad. But looking at the draft, I think this was a story, right? I know we talked about Wednesday, right? People were taking receivers, and right, we talked about. Even Monday's episode, I talked about this. It's just you never know how the draft's going to go until you're into the draft, right? Even just as simple as a fantasy football draft or a fantasy baseball draft, right? Fantasy football, people start taking quarterbacks. You're like, I got to get my guy. I got to get my quarterback. Fantasy baseball, it might be the same with starting pitching, right? Or maybe it depends on how you roll. But look, I think that's what happened in the NFL draft at the highest of levels. Teams, Wilson and London, they go 8-10. And then Saints were like, we got to get our guy, receivers going to be flying. And then look what happens. You pay up, you pay a premium to get wide receivers. Olave gets pushed up to 10 or 11. Which not many, I don't think anyone really expected, right? We saw other guys like Dotson get pushed up, and then you see, guys like Kyle Hamilton go on a discount to the Ravens. But I guess, what were your thoughts on taking Olave at 11? I personally, I like the aggressiveness of trading up and maybe getting that guy, but I thought this was a stretch here. Jared?
I just think if Winston is an average quarterback this year, that's all he really needs to be. Obviously, Michael Thomas is coming back. He missed all of last year. And then with Olave, you get a 1-2 punch there. So they have the weapons with, Kamara on offense, obviously running back. They they have weapons. So if Winston can just be average maybe a little above average, I think this team can make the playoffs. But with the roster with Winston, I don't see them going much further than that. Maybe they win, one playoff game at most, but I like the direction this team is headed. Obviously, you can't just recuperate that easily after Drew Brees left and now Sean Payton. So, I like the direction they're going, and this is going to be a big step this year for this team.
I like the Olave pick. I was surprised to see him go before Jameson Williams, but obviously the Saints like them more, and they went up and got their guy. I don't think he would have been there at 15 where they were, so I like the pick.
I like the pick as well for them. It's good to be aggressive in a situation like that. Because the Saints, they were a good team, not a great team. And there's a lot of stuff they had to fix. So I think getting another receiver out there, a young receiver, to take some stress off of Michael Thomas could be a good thing, because you never know how healthy he's going to be coming back. You just need a quarterback to be consistent throwing to those guys, like what Jared said. So if Jameis Winston can just not throw mallards to him and not just be a bum, I think that is a really good decision for them.
Yeah, I really wanted Jameson Williams as well, so that's kind of my thought. But like Zach said, maybe he wasn't even gonna be there at 15. But yeah, you go up, you get your guy, and then you get Trevor Penning as well, the old lineman out of UNI. You get another lineman, right? You can never, from getting a lineman in the first round, you can't go wrong, I feel, unless, barring injury, of course. But look, personally, I think the Saints had a solid draft. It was nothing maybe like that, opened everyone's eyes, right? I felt like some teams, look, the Jets had a draft like that, right? We talked Ravens. I think they had a great draft, but yeah, not the great drafts here, but it was a middle of the road draft, I think, for the Saints. I don't know what you guys all think. Agreement from everyone? Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
About that. Yep.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Yeah. So with that, talking about, right, if you take a guy like Chris Olave at pick 11, we got to talk about fantasy outlook, dynasty outlook. We got to go that far into it. Rookie draft outlook, of course, too, with those coming up. I guess, what do you guys think for the status? I think Olave is a for sure probably first round pick in a rookie draft, but looking through it, would you guys want maybe take Olave ahead of those other guys, or you guys feel? I'm still more comfortable with Wilson and London. I know, even barring quarterback situations, but how do you guys feel about Olave?
I think he'll be top 5, like you said.
Yeah, I can see him being top 5 too.
Yeah,
I can see him also being a top 5 for that guy.
Good. So we have to talk, Alvin Kamara, right? That's another big story. He's getting up, almost to that age where we'll start seeing the decline. Usually we say magic number is 27. I always hate to say, just say that number and then boom, you're declining, right? But he's at 26 right now. I believe he'll be turning 27. So it's an interesting look for him, I guess. I know with Kamara, there's some other troubles going on. I guess, what do you guys think? For Kamara next year, is that a guy you're staying away from? Because for me, I'm going to be staying away from.
He's still a top 10 running back in football. I think.
Yeah,
so,
but
he's obviously going to be up in the first round of most drafts. So like with Jones and Dillon, you're going to probably want to stay away maybe a little bit, take some better options. But if he's there at 6, 7, 8, you're going to take him because he's still going to get you those fantasy points. He's still not that old. Like you said, 27 is like the cutoff. He's still under that. So, he's still got some years in him, but yeah, you could probably try to stay away from him, but you're not just going to pass him up if it gets too late in the draft.
I think with the Taysom Hill kind of experiment at quarterback being over, according to reports, and Winston Dalton coming in, I think Kamara is a pretty safe floor. I'd say he's probably going to go around that 3 to 5 range after like Jonathan Taylor and Derrick Henry are off the board. There's probably a couple guys, depending how you feel about everyone. Obviously, CMC, depending how much you factor in the injury risk. But I think he's still going to be very fantasy relevant and probably top 5 pick for sure.
I think he's a pretty safe pick as well. I don't think he's going to go, like in the top number of running backs, because again, like that personal situation that he has, we've seen how it can like kind of alter career paths, like with Deshaun Watson and stuff. But one thing I have marked down is I have Kamara, Michael Thomas, and Jameis Winston all in a bracket, and I said, who knows? Because you really don't know what you're going to get this season. Because is Michael Thomas going to come back the same way? Is Jameis Winston going to be able to like be that number one guy, be like a good threat? Because if those two guys aren't going to come back with their prime is, that puts a lot of pressure on Kamara to be the load bearer of the offense. And like what you said, Drew, he's not as young anymore, and what he does requires a lot of effort, mobility, electricity, and it's going to drain him a lot. So I think it's pretty tricky to measure how one person's going to do if you don't know how all three are going to do.
Yeah, Bernie, I agree with that. It's kind of like the Titans situation with Derrick Henry and Tannehill. It's like if Henry's going to be their workload, Tannehill, I mean, he's got to be, still good. It depends on how he plays, and it affects how Henry plays. So I think that's a good analysis.
Yeah. For me still, I mean, I'm going to stand and still stay, I'm not, of course I won't pass him up if something ridiculous happens, but look, this battery court case right now, August 1st is the date, right? And like, we're getting close to the season there. So we're not going to have a definitive, answer what's going on in the situation of verdict here until, August 1st, potentially might not even be that date. So there's still, I think, some concerns with him. I would just, keep that in mind when you're drafting him, right? I know, sometimes you're going to do drafts before August 1st. I know I'm not really a fan of doing them really, really early, but look, Alvin Kamara, great when he's on the field, but there might be there could be a potential situation that bars him from being on the field. So I don't know what you guys, anything else with the Kamara situation, but
no, I think you got it all.
You got to talk, like Bernie mentioned, Michael Thomas, Jameis Winston. There's some question marks, there, but
Taysom Hill,
tight end transition experiment.
Tight end, yeah.
Not really a transition. He's been moving around everywhere, right? But this might be intriguing. I wonder, I'm not sure what the fantasy qualifications are because I know they base them kind of off of this past season, right? So he might still have some eligibility at quarterback or potentially other positions, at least for DFS. So I don't know how that's going to look, but this is going to be intriguing, right? We're going to have to hear reports out of camp, see how it's going, see if that's actually going to be the way they roll. But because if they do, what do you guys think I'd even go to say, what do you think the ceiling is for Taysom Hill at tight end?
I'd say his ceiling is probably about like a tight end 7 or 8. I think the top like 5 or 6 I'd say top 5 or 6 tight ends are pretty locked in. Obviously, you have like those top guys, then you have kind of the next tier. But the one intriguing thing, I think, if Hill does kind of take a tight end role, I don't think he's going to be completely out of the backfield. I think he's still going to be taking carries every once in a while. It might only be like 3 or 4 a game, but I think he's going to be utilizing the red zone and still have those carries that are going to give him some extra points.
Now, if we're able to use him as a quarterback in the tight end slot, obviously he's higher, but I don't see him being, as like Zach said, as big of a target as some of the tight ends out there. But yeah, like I'd say probably top 10, maybe 8, 9 at the highest. That's probably his ceiling for me, but he's not someone that I'm going to go out and seek for in the draft.
You give him a discount, right? And you could be a tight end 1 potentially. I mean, that for your team. So that's some good potential there. Bernie, what were you thinking?
I think, again, like his ceiling isn't extremely high. Like for me, I'd almost like fantasy wise, he's going to be a pretty good tight end because if you factor in, he's going to throw the ball every now and then. He's going to run the ball for a couple of yards. He's going to get receptions and stuff. And that's all going to accumulate over time. So, I mean, with those numbers, he's going to be probably like a top 8, 7 tight end. But to me, he is not like a top 10 tight end, like a strict tight end in the NFL. Because, I mean, he's not the biggest guy. And he's got a little bit of everything, but he's not like a Kittle or even like Tunyon. Tunyon's got size and speed, or Darren Waller, stuff like that. So that's my opinion on it. Like fantasy wise, he'll be top 7, most likely.
Obviously, this all depends on what the fantasy websites classify him as, but
we'll wait and see on that.
Tight end. Yeah.
we'll keep you guys updated on that. We'll be talking, of course, more. We're gonna be excited to do some weekly slates. Some DFS lineups. Some over unders, of course, on sleeper. Always join our sleeper squad if you have not. But talking, wrap up here. You guys want to do our prediction challenge here for the New Orleans Saints?
Let's do it.
Awesome. So let's go. So here are your opponents for the 2022 to 2023 New Orleans Saints. So here it is at Arizona, at Atlanta, at Carolina to play Collins Panthers, at Cleveland, hosting Atlanta, hosting Carolina, hosting Tampa, hosting the Rams, hosting the Seahawks, hosting the Ravens, hosting the Bengals, going to Pittsburgh, going to San Francisco, going to Tampa Bay, hosting Vegas, hosting the Vikings, and then going to Philadelphia to play the Eagles. So we'll have Jared go first here.
Yeah, 11-6, solid. They're going to make the playoffs. I'm calling a big season. Michael Thomas coming back. Winston's going to be as average as he has to be. And I think they're going to sneak in as a 6 seed or maybe a 7 seed in the playoffs.
Wow. So Zach, you want to go?
I'll go 10-7. I think they do still take one from Tampa. I think they have some other tough opponents there.
I'll go now. I will. Yeah, I'm matching 10-7 with Zach. I was debating 9-8, 10-7. But again, I think, I think if you have Winston back, I really like, the squad's chances 10-7. You can still sneak in playoffs, of course, 10-7. But Bernie, what do you think?
I originally had 9-8, and I just kept thinking about it, and I dropped it down to a 6-11, but I bumped it back up to 7-10. They have a lot of really good competition, a lot of solid teams with like a lot of gel, and they have teams like the Panthers then they play, but it's going to be a gelling year for them, so I just don't think it won't. I gotta say 7-10.
Where do you think they go from here then? If you think this year is a gelling year, do you think they change quarterbacks, or what do you think they do?
I think this year's a gelling year for the sole fact that Michael Thomas is coming back and he really hasn't had time to play with Winston. Olave hasn't played with Winston. Kamara, you don't really know. And then your defense is finally coming together with the secondary and stuff. So I think if this year goes well, if it goes better than what I think the next year's going to be even better. So I think this year is just going to be something where they're trying to get it together and it might not all go right for them. So
very nice. Very nice. So that wraps up our standing predictions here. So we got a little bit of everything in that one. We have up to 11 wins or down to 7. So this is kind of a wider range that we've had for our record predictions. Anyone have anything else here?
Well, I mean, like Bernie said, like we said throughout the whole thing, it's all just about injury, how they're going to come back. So like how Michael Thomas comes back and like how Winston plays. So that's why it's a wide variety from the 7 or to the 11. I mean, won't know until the season starts.
Yeah, and you never know with the new head coach. So
yeah.
Bernie, did you have something?
I'd have to agree. I mean, I think almost every single team is like dependent upon injury or like the COVID list, stuff like that. If you can stay healthy and you can stick together as a team, I think you have a lot of good potential for that year or the next year after that. And any team can get rid of those injuries. It can happen to everyone. Get it like last year for them. It was Jameis Winston tore his ACL. I think it's such a huge factor, and it makes it so hard to make predictions. Especially this year with how much the league is shaken up. Like, if you go to the Raiders, you don't know if Devontae Adams is going to play well with Carr, spicing it up with good tight end, good receiver. So maybe he'll get injured. You never know.
You never know, and that's the beauty of football, right? So. Anything else here on this episode 22 of Journey to Million?
Nope.
Awesome.
After the draft, who is your guys' NFL Super Bowl champion favorite?
Chargers.
I still got to go with the Bills.
Bills or Packers for
me.
Me.
About the Bills.
Bills or Packers.
Yeah.
I think
it's going to be someone from the AFC. It's got to be with House.
I agree.
Colts are a sleeper pick, but you never know.
Their Colts are like barely going to win their division.
Are Colts even going to win their division?
Sure.
Without AJ Brown, yeah.
Yeah.
They're going to beat the Titans.
Yeah.
I
don't know.
think the winner's coming out of the AFC West. And from
West,
that,
yeah.
I don't think the Raiders make the playoffs.
I can see that.
It's just me.
I've been saying
It's
that.
either going to be, yeah, it's either going to be the Broncos, the Chargers, or the Chiefs, in my opinion.
All three good teams, yeah.
You never know. Yeah. AFC is looking, head and shoulders better than the NFC this year so far. Just solely based on, one off season changed that, right? And, now Tom Brady coming back, that certainly makes the NFC look a little better, right? But it's certainly changed a little bit here. So I'm going to shout out the socials here. Jordan Drew _sports crew. That's where you'll find the Instagram, find all of our wonderful Journey to a Million posts. Thank you, Zach, for making some nice rankings as well on there. Also, Jordan Drew the Sports Crew on Facebook, Jordan Drew the Sports Crew on YouTube as well, Twitter at JD Sportsbud. Check out our socials for a surprise announcement coming up. Hopefully it's out. If it's not out yet, just keep a lookout. We're really excited to be announcing some great things coming your way. And with that here, thank you all for listening to. Go ahead, Zach.
Feel free to comment on those rankings if you have any of your own thoughts.
Yeah. So with that, thank you all for listening to yet another episode of Jordan and Drew the Sports Crew, the Journey to a Million, the perfect podcast for you.